What's up guys, what's up here? So in my last video I showed you unconventional tricks and tips to boost your grades without even studying. In this video however, we'll be focused on 10 tips that will help you prepare for the exam. And keep waiting for the last tips because I'm pretty sure there's some that you haven't even heard of before. So yeah, let's not waste any more time and get right into the list. Tip number 1 is the Pomodoro intervals. So using the Pomodoro intervals, you are essentially breaking down your studying into smaller sessions and thereby giving you time to have some breaks and thereby making your study more fun and effective. So the Pomodoro technique consists of 25 minutes of concentrated work followed by 5 minutes of rest, and you're going to do this for 4 times and then take a longer 15 to 20 minutes break, and then you can do it again if you want to. Of course, we're all different when it comes to studying intervals, but studies suggest that these Pomodoro intervals are actually the most optimal generally. Tip number 2, spatial repetition. Speaking of intervals, spaced repetition has also shown to work where you are essentially using the forgettive curve in order to retain most information. Alright, so the intervals that I've searched up is that the first repetition is 1 day after initial learning session, and then second repetition is about a week after the initial learning session. Third repetition is 16 days after the initial learning session, and the fourth repetition is 35 days after the initial learning session. There's a variety of intervals of course out there. You can search it up on the internet, but an example that I would follow is as follows. So first of all, do some studying of the topics you're learning or reviewing the next day at school. Now go to school and learn during that day. And then schools often have this thing where they, within a week or so, are going to repeat the same subject again, either with a classroom teaching or a lecture, just some type of restudying of the essential subject. And then, this is very important, each weekend you are going to come over what you learned on the week prior to that week. So, and then of course you have to study it again when the exam period approaches. So yeah, I know it might sound confusing for you right now, but the intervals I essentially want you to memorize is just whenever you're doing something, repeat it again within 24 hours a day, and then again within a week, and then again within a month. So yeah, that should be easy to remember. No need for spatial repetition in this one. So yeah, and that will enhance your retention by miles. And the intervals that I mentioned should be easy to remember. So tip number 3, Feynman technique. In my video on how to get better grades, I generally mention how hanging out with the smarter students is very beneficial for you. But with this tip, you can also benefit from being in group with the less smart. You see, Richard Feynman was one of the most influential physicists of the 20th century, and he had an approach to ensure expertise in any field. This is where you have to imagine you're teaching it to a bunch of 5-year-olds, creating analogies and simplifications to really understand the topic yourself. Also, a bonus tip here is to be creative with it. When experiencing difficulty in trying to remember something crucial, try to make mnemonics either by yourself or some AIs like ChatGPT, and have this imaginary purpose of you needing to teach others the concept. And even if you don't have a group of students to spar with, just imagine that you're actually going to do it and yeah, explain the concept. I've also heard of creative people making their notes into songs or even stories. Point is, there are several ways to be creative and make memorizing easier. When it comes to memory, I would simply just advise you to keep trying to improve your memory and never stop learning inside or outside of school. Fun fact, I remember in German lectures, we were actually told that a student once memorized a whole song in German and then used the lyrics from that song in the conversation. I don't know how either, but people do a lot of crazy stuff there. And just keep trying. Tip number 4 is active recall. So I definitely recommend that you engage actively in the material that you learn through teaching other people or discussing it by yourself, or all in all applying the knowledge in practical scenarios. Your brain is much more likely to remember stuff that it finds useful and that knows that it's going to use. So there are tons of flashcards out there, apps like Anki or Quizlet. So I would just recommend for you to pick whichever you feel like is good enough, and you can make flashcards for important details that you would like to remember. Tip number 5, start the exam before starting time. Alright, this tip might not work for all, but have a similar top grade assignment ready before the exam. In most of my time of school, I would spend multiple hours, we're talking like plus 20, trying to perfect the first assignment that I had in every single subject. And once I got the feedback from the teacher, I would try to perfect every single detail within it, from the vocabulary to the structure to the flow and so on. Now, a lot of phrases that I used in those top assignments I would actually use in the very same exam and have the same structure, feeling confident that essentially not a lot was going to go wrong. This is especially useful if you feel like you're short on time on the exams and want to just feel a bit more calm. In my case, I was quite slow with the exams because I was very perfectionistic with every single detail. So this allowed me to focus on more of the reading stuff that we had to do. Now, unfortunately, my medical exams actually do not allow me to use any notes of all, so thereby the method of course do not work here. And it only works if you're allowed to use one note offline and thereby copy paste the sections into the document of the exam. Otherwise, I would just recommend you to insert eloquent phrases in a document and then try to quickly read through it before the exam starts. Tip number 6, study before bed. So a recent study published by researchers from Loughborough University, I hope I don't butcher that name, but it found that you're more likely to recall information later if you went to sleep after learning the information. And this can actually also help you structure your daily routines by placing the studying later than, let's say, working out. And for me personally, it also stops me from napping without having studying prior to that. And this way I will also feel better about my sleep. Tip number 7, study in another area. With this little tip, I just want you to try to allocate time in studying in different areas than you're used to, such as a park, coffee shop, different library. And another example is actually being in the same area that you're studying, but with a different lighting. That will also work. Also very important that you try to separate the area in which you're studying with the area in which you're doing something else. That way you don't get distracted. Tip number 8, stare into a wall. Look, I know how odd this sounds, but it turns out there can actually be some mental benefits in the simple activity akin to embracing moments of boredom. Engaging in such activity can serve as a form of meditation, helping you to clear your mind and foster a space for introspection and the generation of new ideas. It's an exercise in simplicity, providing a contrast to the constant stimulation that we are accustomed to in our daily lives. These stimulations are becoming distractions when you are studying something that's boring. So studying smarter is all about studying as much time and flow states as possible. Make your study seem less boring for you by staring at a white wall for, let's say, 30 seconds before undergoing your studying, and thereby approach the flow state. Tip number 9, stop stressing. Although this one might be difficult to get through, countless of research show major evidence that stress makes it harder to learn and retain information. So I also know students that were putting like twice as much work and time into studying, whereas they would barely even get average grades. Whereas I also know pretty calm-mannered people that don't even study half as much as the average person but still score high grades. That goes to show that it's not just about studying harder but also smarter. To handle stress, some people meditate, some people fight train. Essentially, there's not a one-fits-all. I would just recommend you to try and figure out what works best for you. If you want me to make a science-based specific video on how to manage stress and also include my personal tips on time management, please let me know in the comments. Tip number 10, change your text into different fonts. So apparently articles suggest that varying fonts can enhance memory retention. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't actually know this tip before making this video, but what I did know is highlighting and color grading your notes can essentially both improve a person's reading, making it faster. If you don't like writing notes by hand, although it's proven to be more effective in learning, there are various of note-taking softwares that you can change font and so much more. Bonus tip, eating citrus fruit. So I'll be honest, I haven't actually searched and found articles on this one. This is actually a tip that I was told back in primary school, and I also want to connect it to studying with good scent or good company, because our brain link smell and taste to memories. In basic terms, the amygdala, which process emotions, and the hippocampus, which handle memories, they team up. Hence why if I tell you to recall an old memory of yours, it will most likely be something that evoked a lot of senses or feelings at the time, be it an extremely joyful first time vacation or perhaps traumatizing event. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Remember that if you haven't watched my video already on how to improve your grades without studying, watch this video right here, and I hope you find these tips helpful as well. Work hard, smart, and ace any exam in life.
you.